I imagine they don't have any hair left. I imagine it's a studio filled with bald men and women who have just ripped their hair out, trying to figure out what to do with the Madness engine. But I think they've done it, and now's the time for them to invest in wigs or hair plugs, because I think the hair pulling out portion of the of the development of AMS2 has ended. We're back in AMS2. I'm Mooney GT, and it's time to talk about the State of the Union. We're doing something we haven't done on the channel in a long time, and that is test out AMS2 AI. It has been a long time since we've done this. I don't remember the last time. It might have even been when Hockenheim DLC was released and we were testing the AI in the Stock Car 2019, so it's been quite a long time. But we're going to do that today. We're going to jump in the GT4s at Adelaide because I love street circuits, and Adelaide I think is a really fantastic one. It's not as claustrophobic as Monaco is, and I think it just is it's a fun track. And these GT4 cars I wanted to test out too, because I think at launch when they released the GT3s and the GT4s, it to me really felt like the GT3s got most of Reiza's attention, and they felt more polished and kind of good to go. I thought the GT4s were kind of disappointing at the time, and that could be any number of things. Could have been my own settings and setups that were no good. It could have been that they actually didn't spend as much time polishing the GT4s because maybe they weren't as important as the GT3s. It could be the host of updates that have come out since then that have fine-tuned tire treads and bearing inertia, all the tiny little details that Reiza's really throwing himself into. So, without further ado, we will jump into an 8-lap race at Adelaide, kind of in sunset. We're in the amazing McLaren GT3, or GT4 car rather, and this is absolutely my favorite GT4. But let's take a look at how the AI does and how I do with the AI. But as always, when it comes to AMS, we're going too wide through the chicane. We got to get it out of the way straight away is the graphics. Look how good this looks. It's amazing. It's such a pretty thing to get to drive in VR, and with this level of performance too. It's a treat to get to drive something like this. So we should all be grateful that this is just another beautiful option for VR. Of course, look at the level of detail in that sun as it's searing my retinas in real life. So we get that blend between virtual reality and the reality of being blind by the sun. So I've had a love-hate relationship, I'd say, with AMS2 over its development cycle, and hate's a strong word, but I got into it at the beta pretty early on, before release, and I quite enjoyed it. I thought it was, like, out of the gates, it was Project Cars 2, but better. And then somewhere along the way, I think Reiza started really tearing it apart to put it back together the right way, because I think everyone can acknowledge that Project Cars 2 has some issues that make it not perfect. I'm in the camp of I quite enjoyed Project Cars 2, and I've had lots of fun lapping it and racing it. But I would say that it's not the most realistic and maybe not the most perfect sim out there. But I definitely have spent lots of time lapping in Project Cars 2 because I quite enjoy it. But I know there's people out there who don't. So for those people, I think Reiza has, really just taken this game down to the studs and retooled it. And they're not done yet, but it's gotten so much better. I feel like over the last 3 or 4 months in particular, it is kind of transformed into something that I usually am just, tickled to get into and start playing with a bunch of different cars and test things out. In part because of these graphics. It just runs so well in VR, and the physics and handling are starting to really come alive. And that's one of the things I really want to highlight in this video and talk about is the tires. I really feel like AMS2, we've got to run. We're going too wide through the fastest part. I'm terrified. Okay. But see, that's the fun part about doing. Of single player AI racing is we can do things like that and just laugh about it and not care, and we don't have someone screaming in our ear about how we just murdered them. All right. So, anyways, yeah, the tires. I think I really feel like even at this stage in the development, and I think it's getting pretty close to being like where they don't need to change anything. But these tires slide and transition from grip to sliding in a much more fun way than I think anything else. I've always said that Race Room is probably my favorite sim, and that's on average. I mean, every sim I think probably has something that it does better than anyone else. But I think kind of on average, I've always quite enjoyed Race Room. But AMS2 is catching up in a hurry and is doing some things definitely better than Race Room. One of which is, of course, the graphics and how well it runs. But the way the tire slips and slides in AMS2, I don't know if anyone does it better. I haven't spent enough time in R Factor 2 yet. I was pretty blown away by my initial first drive in R Factor 2, but that's something I need to go spend more time in. But ignoring that one, I don't know if anything slides and feels as intuitive and natural to me than AMS2. And that's said with an asterisk, because I don't think every car in AMS2 behaves and handles the same. And not that they should, but I mean, at the limits of grip and stuff, some of the cars are quite feel the way I would kind of expect when they're sliding. Other cars don't seem to work so well. And I'm hoping that some of that stuff that's still being tweaked and developed as we, through each update. And I think Reiza is really working hard to go deep into figuring everything out. That's why we get these patch notes and they do things like, did they change wheel bearing inertia or something like that? Which kind of makes me laugh when I read that. Right? I'm like, seriously, we're worried about wheel bearing inertia, or wheel bearing friction, I think it was. It's like, why is that even being modeled? How can that possibly make my sim better? But it's there, right? And that's all part of the Madness engine because that's what SMS created. But the important thing is we should all be grateful that Reiza is going that deep into this, right? They're messing with wheel bearing friction. They're getting out some grease and some lube and putting it on the bearings for all of us, so we don't have to. We don't even have to get our hands dirty. We just get to enjoy the improvement in the physics and handling. And I mean, no sim is perfect, and AMS2 certainly isn't perfect in my eyes, but man, it's getting to be really good, and some of these cars just are a blast to drive. This McLaren is definitely one of them. I quite like it. See, look, we're getting some nice sliding there. Race Room doesn't do that. Race Room doesn't feel that way. It doesn't slide as gracefully. You can blow corners in Race Room just like that, though. You can brake too deep just like I did. But I think this tire model is quickly becoming my favorite, and I'm kind of surprised because I really enjoy Race Room. I quite like ACC. I think they feel very different, but I like the experience that ACC provides. It just doesn't have enough variety of content. That's its only thing, and it doesn't run super well in VR. But yeah, so that's kind of where we are with AMS2 right now, is that it's getting to be really good. I've certainly had my share of headaches and frustrations with it. Loved it at kind of the early beta stage, and then I was quite frustrated with it. And I've had my own issues with getting the force feedback to work the way I want it to and stuff. But putting that all behind us right at this exact moment, man, I'm enjoying this. Woo! There's a wall. There's a ding. So if you haven't tried AMS2 lately, I think it's worth a shot. And oh, see, there's that sliding. I don't know if you can see it on camera as well as I can feel it, but man, it just slides in such a intuitive way. And I do have some, real life track experience, and I've felt cars slide. I've felt tires. Now, I haven't driven on slicks, I'll tell you that, but I have driven on very grippy street tires that are the type of tire that if they're cold, like if it's 40 degrees outside, that's Fahrenheit, not Celsius, the tires just don't work. And, so I have experience driving on soft, sticky tires, which slide different than street tires, is why I'm making that point. And slicks are even more different from those, but no other sim seems to slide in the way that I would expect it to. And I could be totally wrong. That's just my preference and experience. But man, this tire model is really getting there, where it feels about like I would expect and want it to feel. Now, some criticisms. Like I said, I don't think every car in AMS2 drives as well as some of the other ones. This is one of the ones that I feel is particularly good and feels Like the physics are just dialed in right. The force feedback feels good. It slides right. Both in like going around cornering and when you get some wheel spin from just mashing the gas. But I did some testing in the Camaro, and I don't think the Camaro drives as nicely. I get into situations in that car where it feels like the rear tires are fighting each other. I don't know if that's a differential setting. I don't know if it's just some general physics with the car, but you come out of one of these slower corners, you're in second gear and you mat the throttle, which maybe you just shouldn't do with that massive V8. But if you do it, I feel like you can feel the right side grip more than the left. Oh, we're doing it. Oh no, another dive bomb. Oh gosh. Okay. So that just happened. We did that. But anyways, I feel like you can feel the tires fighting each other. So the back end of the car, I don't want to say fishtails, but it's doing that. It's sliding kind of back and forth and making the car oscillate a bit. And I really feel like it's the tires fighting themselves. Like the game can't decide how much grip each tire should have, and it just doesn't feel as planted. This car, you can, when you get on the throttle, if you have too much throttle for the amount of grip you've got, yeah, it'll slide a little bit, but it doesn't oscillate and fight itself. So maybe that's easily tuned out with a setup. Maybe Steelcast 27 can give us a GT4 Camaro tune that will make it a dream to drive. But right now, I think the default McLaren setup, which is what I'm using right now, is vastly superior to the default Camaro setup. Boy, that's another criticism in general I would give to AMS2, is that they could do themselves a massive favor by just refining the default setups for the cars, which is a big job. I know that. I know they're busy. But I think it would really open people's minds up to what AMS2 is and could be if the default setups were a little bit better. Because I've started to see now through the wisdom and ingenuity of Steelcast what a proper custom setup for some of these cars can really just transform them. I recently tried a 911 GT3 setup that Steelcast had done, and it made the car feel like something I actually wanted to drive. I never could get comfortable in that car in AMS2 on the default setup, but we've looped it. But the proper setup really made a difference for me in a good way. So I think, hey guys, I think a proper setup for most of the cars could really improve the game and just make it so that people got that warm, fuzzy feeling straight away and didn't have to go digging for it by finding the right car to drive or tweaking the setup to make it behave a little bit more predictably or better. Do I have any other criticisms for AMS2? I don't know. I'm really just at the point where I'm just kind of enjoying it and quite excited when I have time to sit down and play it. I will tell you, my eyes bugged out of my head when I saw what's coming in the America Pack thing. America. I couldn't be more excited about the C8R and that 911 RSR, and then we get Laguna and Long Beach and the Cadillac DPI. It's like they made that DLC just for me, and I promise you I will pick that up as soon as I can. Take my money now. There was another good example of how the car just slid a little bit. The back end stepped out just a little bit. Oh, we're doing it again. We're doing it again. These McLarens are built really well. You see how we're just steamrolling into people and bouncing off them as if damage was turned off? Damage is turned off, guys. That's why that works. But anyways, I've rambled on. Wow, we did it for a whole 8 laps. And I probably still have more to say. But if you haven't tried AMS2 recently, I think it's time to go back in. Don't forget to delete your documents folder thing or whatever to make sure that all of your settings get fixed. It's kind of a pain. You got to remap things and set up your wheel and all that stuff. I did that recently, and that may be part of why things have been feeling so much better for me now. But anyways, I'm really impressed, and I'm really pleased with where the sim is now and where it's going. I really think Reiza has taken the time and the frustration of figuring out what in the world is going on in the Madness engine. I imagine they don't have any hair left. I imagine it's a studio filled with bald men and women who have just ripped their hair out, trying to figure out what to do with the Madness engine. But I think they've done it, and now's the time for them to invest in wigs or hair plugs, because I think I think the hair pulling out portion of the of the development of AMS2 has ended. So with that, guys, I will leave you. But man, go play AMS2 again. It's gotten to be pretty awesome.